Like, I remember an architect ringing me going, "You had a look at those plans?" I said, "No." And he goes, "Oh, check your inbox." And I looked at the inbox, and he's like, "Oh, it needs to be under 650. And I'm like, "Mate, you're talking on the phone. I just opened the email. Like, what's this 650 stuff? What are you talking about?"
G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We are back in the shed this afternoon for another cracking episode. I'm pretty pumped to have this bloke in the chair. I've asked him quite a few times. He's definitely got out of his comfort zone to be here today, but we have Chris from PrimeBuilt in the house. So Chris and I have known each other for a while now, probably met through social media, but I will just warn everyone before we get stuck into this one, we do have some construction works going on outside the shed at the moment, so we definitely are pretty much on a job site today. So for those that don't know Chris, he made his acting debut as a stormtrooper at the Live Life Build Live event earlier in the year. He's very shy and he's definitely come out of his comfort zone to be here today, but I guarantee you Chris has got a lot of value to add. So mate, thanks so much for coming along. I really appreciate it. You're up here from Melbourne?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, up from Melbourne for a bit of a circuit break with the family and the folks, actually, just up near Maroochydore.
Yeah. No, good on you, mate. Well, I forgot to, in your intro there, like you're also very passionate about all things with motors, motorbikes, cars, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Ski boats.
Yeah. So my nickname when I was 2 years old was Petrol, and it's actually stuck. Yeah, the nickname hasn't so much, but certainly I just seem to retain a lot about anything with an engine and specifically, performance-related stuff.
Yeah, well, let's get stuck into that first because I love all that shit as well. I think some of the conversations you and I have that start as business generally always end with something to do about cars or motorbikes.
They certainly do. No, this could go on for days. But no, look, yeah, I certainly, I don't know, I've just always been curious, interested, whether it's motorbikes, fast cars, boats, even, helicopters a little bit. Not so much an interest of mine, certainly my dad's, but I, saddled onto a bit of that once I got to know a little bit more, and it tends to go a bit further from there. So you,
I'm like, I like sports, but I'm definitely more similar to you, more attracted to things with motors. Like, are you into your AFL or your NRL? Or?
It's funny you say that. So I spent all my junior years playing a lot of competitive football and sort of in the right environment to keep going with it. But when I really seriously got into bike riding, the friendship circle from that, it's funny because they really are almost one side or the other. Like my bike riding mates can't stand AFL. And I just forget half the time and I'm like, go the Blue Boys. And they're like, what are you talking about? But
it is very much like that, but like I enjoy going to watch a game of AFL or NRL or whatever it may be, but I'm not like, I don't really go out of my way to make sure I watch it on tally, or I don't, like, to be honest, if you ask me where teams are on the ladder or that, I couldn't really tell you. And probably, to be honest, it's similar with motorsports. I couldn't tell you who's leading Supercar Championship or any of that sort of thing, but I just love saying, like, bikes, cars, speedboats, helicopters, like anything with a bit of a speed to it. I think, and just, I don't know, I love the noise too, the smell.
Yeah, the smell, everything. Yeah, I think it's different to everyone. Like I'm certainly not a person who wants to be seen as you introduced me. I've always sort of said, I'd be interested in driving like a Ferrari, like a V12 for the engineering, not for the attention. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm the same, mate. You're in it for, like, well, I guess similar to what we build houses. Like, you're in it for the detail and the quality and the thought and the engineering that's gone behind it to make it do what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and everything's like, it just means so much different to so many people. I'm the same with the motorsport. I don't so much follow a motorsport strictly and want to know who wins each week, but I've certainly spectated just about every form that I can think of. And
yeah, well, you've done something that's definitely on my bucket list. Like, you had a pretty good trip last year with your old boy, didn't you?
We did, yeah. So it was impromptu, so not segueing, but Dad and I went to see, I hassled him as maybe a 13 or 14-year-old to go and see the Rolling Stones when they came to Melbourne, and which I don't think any 14-year-old ever wanted to do because they're about 150 now, but we went to do that, and then we've been a couple of times since, and then obviously because the Stones are so old, everyone's there last, and we missed one due to COVID. We were going to go to the States to go and see them, but they announced another show in London. Anyway, long story short, we're looking into it, and he goes, "Didn't you want to go see some car show while you were there, or at some stage?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's I haven't even thought about it. It's in July sometime," and the concert was in June. And as I was on the phone to him, I've looked up on the computer because we're literally booking flights and things. And, it was in June. It was the same weekend. It was the same weekend that the concert was on. I'm like, this is unreal. So, Of course, we extended the trip an extra few days to cover. And, we shot over last year, which was...
So what was it? What's that?
The Goodwood Festival of Speed it is. So it's on private property, the Goodwood estate. The fella who owns it, he's a lord. I don't even know what that means really, but
it's important.
Yeah, he's important, and it's what's called the Festival of Speed. They have a couple of other signature events at the same property, but this is the big one, and it really is just, there's no other way to describe it but a festival of speed. Like, you just, for people who are into it, you walk around, it's an overload of your senses with things that are going on. Like, Travis Pastrana's over there doing donuts and doing something silly. Then there's a $4 million car over here, racing against another. There's just stuff going everywhere. And it's not about the money, but it's a real gentleman's event. If I can say that, it's just you can go to some motorsport events and they can be a bit like feral.
Bogans.
Yeah. There's none of that over there. It's so... Most
of the ones I was growing up, I was a bogan.
Yeah, we've all got a bit of it in us, mate. But if you go up over there, you've got access to them. So we were driving down an English B road on the way, and hired a car. It was all an experience just with me and the old man, and you all high grass. So you sort of, like, the map's telling us we're pretty close, whatever. And there's like this car dealership that pops out of nowhere, but it's got room for like one car, and it's saying we're 10 minutes away from the festival. And I'm like, he goes, what's that thing? And I go, it's a McLaren F1. They made not many of them, and I think the last one sold for $25 million or something. There's just one sitting there, and then we go there and we see another 6, and it's just that sort of thing,
Yeah.
Like, again, I don't care about the money side of things, but these guys, the thing that I loved about it is they're punting these things up the hill, which is the Lord's driveway, and that's what they do. They just run these things up there and have a real crack at it. And
I didn't realise it was a private estate.
Yeah. It's magic. There's like a horse racing thing there that horse is not this weekend sort of thing, but they create this big art piece, and depending on the theme. So the year we went was BMW M's 50th anniversary. So they've got this 35 metre statue and they've got cars that are like all these important race cars are just strung upside down and this thing in the air, and the event goes for 4 days. So it's really good, and you just get so close to it. It's just a really good. The weather's nice. But
it's something you got to do, and I think the fact you got to do it with your old boy was pretty special, I imagine.
It was. It certainly, it took the thing, we went to the Stones concert on a Saturday night, and that was really good too. But I think the whole thing, that as well, Dad didn't know much about it, and he's like, I'd go back to this sort of thing. So yeah, we might try and make our way back there one day. We did another event over there years ago, which I know I've sent you a video on the Isle of Man TT, which is...
mate, I'd love to go and have a crack at that, because you know someone that raced in that, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Just a mate that we grew up with. He just went on and did his thing and was quite successful there. But
that is insane. I've only seen it on TV, and it looks friggin' insane.
I can out and out say, if you're remotely, I don't think you have to be into bike racing or anything like that. I don't really follow the MotoGP or go to the tracks, but we took a mate who basically just wanted to piss up for a couple of weeks, and we took a mate who wasn't into bike riding at all. And he was blown away. We jumped in the car with Cam. He picked us up from the airport and he drove down the start of the track. And we an hour or two later, it was practice, and we jumped in and sat there. And he said, "Oh, you come down the hill and you're straight into top gear and it's flat out through here and blah 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 blah." It was a bit of a sighting lap from a racer's perspective. And then we sat there in the crowd, and it's so close to the where the bikes go past, and you can hear them wind up, and everyone in the crowd, you can hear their breath just get taken away when the bike goes past, and you hear this sort of slow echo, it's because it does. It's unbelievably close. You can just see, and it's a good form of racing too.
They're flat out, bloody top speed, 2 wheels off the ground, bloody metre away from massive trees and stone fences, and
it's crazy. And it's not like going on a short circuit. So you know your braking points at the end of the straight and your second gear here or your whatever. The lap's 60 kilometres.
Yeah, so and it's timed, isn't it? It's not a race; it's a timed lap.
Well, it's a timed trial, so they staggered start. They start 10 seconds apart from each other.
Yeah,
and, but it literally in numbers. So bike number 1 goes first, bike number 2, etc. So if for instance, bike number 1 and bike number 2 are racing wheel to wheel. Number 2's at least 10 seconds quicker than number 1, but they race like they're on a short circuit and they've got gravel traps and stuff. These things have got bluestone walls and power poles. Like, it's seriously bizarre. So Dad was mentioning he wouldn't mind going over and have a look at that at some stage. So we might get back there and
let us know, mate. I'll take a look.
Yeah, you will not regret it.
So your old boy plays a big part, hadn't he, in like what you do now? Like he's a builder as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. So Mum and Dad worked together for years doing their thing. I think when Dad first started, Mum was probably still busy looking after us. But then, she jumped in. They did their thing together for a long time, and we were pretty lucky. Like I said, I just remember growing up, whether I had a day off school and it was like a fake to sickie or something, I'd go to work with Dad, go and get the ute bogged or something. So do you know what I mean? So he's probably been pretty lucky to have that sort of insight like available on hand, just experience of talking and watching them run a business in the building industry, obviously. So yeah, we're real lucky.
Do you think because you're like my old man's a painter, like I was the same, like mate, I made every excuse I could not to go to school and jump in the ute with him and go to the job site. But do you think having that upbringing and seeing what your old boy went through has helped you know what you need to do now? Because like you're a member of Live Like Build. You use our software Quoties as well. Like, you've obviously seen the value in not being a great builder, but actually having to know more about the business side of things.
Yes, so it certainly has helped. I remember being sort of a teenager just before I started working and being real curious as to why Dad was always so busy.
So busy.
Yeah. Like, he always made time to have a kick of the footy with us on the road when he'd come home, but it was like 10 minutes because he had to get in and make the phone calls and stuff, like probably almost before mobile phones were a thing. But
yeah,
I guess I've had my battles with it in my head about, like, because it can never be enough. Like, you can do 7 days a week, 24/7. You feel like you're never on top of it. And then I've sort of had the advantage of looking back and saying, well, if I was going to do that, is there another angle which I could take on this? But I mean, I entered the industry sort of electively doing it with a fella who was a hard taskmaster, so not my dad. In that, Dad's not a carpenter, so, and I did my time like that, and it was, this guy pushed me, and we're still pretty good mates today, but he just taught me that fundamental, and then so I've done all that, and then the tradesman side of things. But certainly when I started building, I thought there's got to be more to this. There's got to be something here, because there's the same sort of stories that keep coming through. Whether it's clients, or they don't like this, or they don't know this and stuff. I don't, like a lot of that stuff that you do sort of resonates as well. It's about education and communication, but it's
you just don't know what you don't know.
That's right, and it's starting from so far back, because you mentioned you weren't really keen on going to school. Like, same thing. And I think a lot of the industries probably could relate to that. And by definition, you want to be out there getting your hands dirty and learning things practically that way. So you don't pay a lot of attention to that stuff, do you?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's the more self-improvement I do, or the more, I don't know, I'm just constantly reflecting on things and thinking about things and looking at things. And like, one of, I think, the things that I'm really disappointed about, and we definitely pay a lot of attention with our girls, is like the schooling system is a one-size-fits-all. And looking back at it now, like I feel like I was probably made to think that I wasn't a smart person because I wasn't interested in what was going on at school. And yet when you put me on a job site, even at a young age, I could kill it. And I was interested. Like, I would get interested in the books when I was doing my apprenticeship and do what I needed to do, because I knew that would get me to be an apprenticeship or finish my apprenticeship. But I think it's a real shame that, I don't know, there's not more work done around in those early years, empowering people to have confidence in what they are thinking of doing, rather than possibly making them feel like I did, where you're like not too sure, or you feel like you're not up to the same intelligence level of the people around you.
And you get told to make a decision by a certain age or stage, on what you want to do for the rest of your life, and it's the be all end all.
And like a lot of the builders and tradies, and like, I know what we call them, blue collar workers that I know now, are fucking some of the smartest people I've ever met in their environment.
Absolutely. Look, I don't think it can be this simple either, but people talk about book smarts, street smarts, common sense, that sort of stuff. And I mean, a highly intellectual person can bury themselves in a textbook and remember every part of it. I'm certainly not one of those.
Yeah, definitely not me.
But certain areas of your life, just due to the human experience and the real life experience you get on a job site, and it's cleaning up its act too. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of things that you can't do anymore, and that sort of stuff. No one should be proud of either, but it's good that they're cleaning those things up, but you're still getting exposure. You know, like the young guys coming through, whether they're first year or second year or something, you're literally taking them out of school and watching them become a man or a woman, you know, or whatever they can do in front of you, you know. And they're life lessons. Like, I reflect on my time at that stage when I finished high school, but I didn't probably feel like I was ready to go to work. But when I was still a bit, you know, I know this is going to be a big turning point because of that thing. I like looking at Dad and all he seemed to do was work, and I couldn't compute. Like, all I did was play footy, ride bikes, do whatever I wanted to do, and that was like, you know, it's grow up time.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Sorry to interrupt, guys, but we've got to thank our sponsors because without them, we can't keep delivering you this incredible podcast. So massive shout out to DPS Constructions, Quoties, Live Life Build, and 44 Gallon Films. Make sure you go and check those guys out, support them so that we can keep delivering you this incredible podcast. Has that an impact on what you do now? Because I know, my old man was the best old man ever. Like, he definitely, like, we had an incredible upbringing and he spent as much time and holidays and shit with us as possible. But he was the same. Like, it was always working, and quite often it was Saturdays and Sundays and stuff as well. And like, a big driver for me with my young girls has been like, I want to get myself in a position where I can, like, if I can take them to school or pick them up or, take them away for long weekends as much as possible, like all that type of thing. Yeah,
it is a driver. It's funny you mentioned that. So I had a fantastic upbringing. We didn't miss out. We weren't spoiled. I don't think, if you ask Mum, maybe, but no, we weren't. I'm
sure you were, mate.
Mum and Dad did a great job of it, but we were, you know. We would go boating, you know, but Dad would come back in the holidays to break because he had to just go home, service for a couple of days, and come back, and he'd always make that work. Yeah. But that was our holiday, and we were wrapped. Yeah. So we by no means felt that I missed out because Mum and Dad were both so busy. But do you think they were present? But I do. Yeah, it was the confusing thing with me was that the problems, not the problems, but what he had to service, his time. I don't think he felt was as valuable as it was because it was just the way it was, like putting out the same old headaches. Like he said to me, he went from plumbing, you know what I mean, to building, and he remembers a bricklayer on the first job, and Dad was somewhere else doing something else. They rang him up and said, "Oh, I need a couple of bags of cement," and he goes, "We'll go down the harbour and get them." And then they go, "No, we don't do that." And he goes, "I'm on the other side of town." They said, "Oh, we'll see you tomorrow." And he couldn't. He's like, "What do you mean? The hardware's 300 metres down the road. Just go and get them. I'll fix them up for you." Yeah. And they're like, no, you're the builder, you've got to get the cement for us. And this was like 80s or something. So, and he's just like, this is not what plumbers did. Like, plumbers came prepared. They had all their equipment, every fitting, gas and all that sort of stuff, or Reese would run it out or whatever. But so it took him a bit to get his head around. But like when I saw him, battling the same sort of hiccups over and over and over again. I guess I'd look at that and go, he just got used to being that Johnny on the spot, had to sort of put out the fire, and that's the way it was. And, you earn a good living doing it, and we no complaints at all. He hasn't got any.
Isn't it funny? But like I think about how far we've come, and especially the stuff we talk about and teach and elevate, live like build. Like, I'm such a firm believer now that the biggest improvement is generally the person. The systems and processes help, but like you said, he probably didn't value his time the way that he should have. When you do take ownership and you value your time, like our data sort of suggests now that you can actually, most builders can actually double or triple their turnover and the amount of jobs they do with the current size team they have once they learn how to run it properly. Yep. Instead of, because there's just so much wasted time. And most builders, and this was me, like back in the day, I was probably no different to your old boy. Like, I was literally just running around from site to site, trades bringing me on another job, same deal. Oh, we need this, or need you to have a look at this. And so you'd 9 out of 10, you wouldn't get to finish what you're doing. You'd race over there, like you're just running around like a headless chook, like trying to satisfy everybody else. And I wasn't getting a second for myself. Yeah. And that would go from the phone ringing at 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, to talking on the phone when you're walking into the house at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. Yeah. My mum used to have a rule of you couldn't come and pick up a cheque on Friday because the tradies will swing past on a Friday. Yeah. And they'd literally knock on the door. Yeah. I think we had someone come on Christmas morning for a cheque. Yeah. And geez, that takes me back. I remember when I was running all my carpenters, I was paying my boys by check, and like when we had 40 odd, every Friday I'd have to make sure I got to every job, because if I didn't get to the job in time to give them the check and they didn't have time to cash it in, I was the bad guy.
Yeah. Oh,
That's making me sound old, actually.
That could go down a rabbit hole, that one. But yeah, I've been talking to Dad. I talk to Dad all the time, and about, I reckon, the industry in itself, and a big part of what you guys are doing. It's just ripe. I think the building environment's probably been a tough one for a lot of people. And whether it's education or the lack of support from any industry or bodies, or, you know, with VBA or whatever you want to call it, just knowledge as well. But I think in the not too distant future, it's just going to be a much more appealing and much more secure and stable environment. And I think things are triggering now, and it's all happening for a reason. That's got to happen.
Well, there's so many things that are at play here, because like we have pretty big numbers of people retiring out of the industry, and the numbers retiring are far more than the numbers coming in. Mm-hmm. So, like I tell my younger guys all the time, like, you're in a prime position. Like, if you get your shit together, you work your ass off, you do as you're told, you put in that extra 1% and you do things correct, you're in a prime position to do well, because there's not too many, there's nowhere near enough coming through to keep up with the demand of what we have to do. Yeah. So if you do a really good job of it, you can charge what you need to charge, and you're going to make really good money.
Yeah, for every 10 retiring, there's one coming through, sort of thing. I mean,
it's insane. The numbers are insane.
I haven't seen any official numbers, but it'd be scary to think of. I mean, you see it, like you see it all the time. Like back to what I was saying before, you know, a lot of it's attitude too. You know, like, don't know.
But isn't it like, I am just so passionate about it now, and I definitely went through a stage where I thought, like, this is shit. Like, this industry can't support me. I'm never going to reach my goals. I'm constantly putting out fires. I'm always under pressure. Like, every day is a headache. But it can definitely be better. Like, I love it now. I can't think of doing anything better. Like, I think you just got to get in that mindset. You've got to put in the work, don't you? Like, what got you to a point where you decided, I can't do this on my own? Like, I need to read Audible, get some coaching, mentoring. Like,
I remember, I don't know exactly what it was. I think I went through a bit of a flat spot, maybe sort of 10 years ago. I mean, we've been operating for a little bit longer than that, we went on an overseas trip, and it's funny what happens when you give yourself some time to think, just to afford yourself some time to maybe let some fresh ideas and some perspective come into it. And I looked at those people who'd cast such a big influence on me, close to me being my dad, the guy I did my time with, you know, others. And, you know, they're all incredibly happy doing what they're doing. That's fantastic. But for me, I know there was something missing. So I went and did some business courses and stuff like that. And from then on, I've been really into just constant learning.
So what do you mean by there was something missing? Like, you've been able to pinpoint that?
It's probably not that easy for me to pinpoint 100%. I
missing...
probably have a few focus issues, I would imagine. Yeah. And I think working physically on the tools and doing that all day long was really good for that, to a point where it became second nature. You know, the challenge wasn't there as much, so I had to sort of step into something different. Yeah. And then the business side of things, I guess we're talking about now, but, you know, if I look at Mum and Dad, who had it on there, all by themselves, they're doing it by themselves. Like, I'm like, well, surely I can put together a team and do this smoother, you know, just pick up some efficiencies and stuff. And then, you know, from that, you're employing people, you're responsible for delivering a wage or a check each week, whatever it's got to be. But then you start to dive into their growth, and you start to think about what positions you need. Then you're learning in depth about, you know, the numbers essentially in a building, in any business, but a building business. I think it's one of the harder businesses to track. But I don't know. I just got fueled by that, and then not being on the tools all day. I love being on the tools. I still do. I have no qualms about going and doing it. All my guys will see this eventually and give them heaps of shit. But
I've seen your socials, driving the excavator, bloody carrying shit around.
Yeah.
Changing tyres.
Yeah. But for me, there's a fuel there somewhere that like, I'm inherently motivated to go and press a few and try and you know, make a few wrongs and right them, I suppose.
And do you get more addicted the more improvement you see?
Absolutely, yeah. I go like, we're on holiday now. I'll go home in a shitstorm of ideas and you know, we're doing this and we're doing that, and, you know, Jess in the office probably turn around and go, but didn't you say we're doing this? No, we're not doing that, we're doing this way. So, you know, and that's just sort of what happens. But I don't know. I think being on the tools all day, like, because it's physically exhausting, it can be. I just needed that bit of step back to sort of let a bit of fresh air in and work it out. But then I quickly spent it on something else. So Live Life Build. Before that, I was flying to Sydney for some like a business course for over 12 months and that was good. I really got a lot out of it. So all my mates thought I was nuts. They got wind of what the course cost and what I was actually doing. They're just like, what are you doing? Can't we just go back to the pub or do something like that? So it does it. And once you go and you bite off a piece, it becomes pretty addictive.
But you get it back tenfold, don't you?
You do, yeah. And funnily enough, 10 years ago this was, some of the things I learned then that I thought they were rubbish, they're coming to play now.
Yeah.
Like they're starting to go, like this is all making sense. It's almost like the pennies dropping with some stuff.
Yeah.
Years down the track, so...
Yeah,
and the building game is a tough one. There's no doubt about it. But
there's just so many. I think the off-site stuff is just so underestimated. Like everyone just envisages the house that's getting built on the site, the block of land, and like really oversees just how much goes on behind the scenes. Like to run a successful building business, like the site stuff's such a small part of it. Like behind the scenes, you've got accounts, bloody contracts, invoicing, like proposals, like doing all the costing and estimating. Like that
kills me.
Probably one of the biggest parts.
Yep.
Just obviously all your general administration, handling leads and inquiries. Like it's enormous.
There's so many moving parts, mate. And it's true, and not to at all like the guys on site are working really hard, and exactly what I was saying before, like they put in the blood, sweat and tears from 7 in the morning till 3:34 in the afternoon, whatever it's going to be. And they, it's always been this thing that we're doing the work, like the joke I said about now back before. They give me shit because I'm not actually, what do I do all day? I must just drink cafe lattes and the contracts roll in. It's not just that, it's everything. Like you could, if you're not doing it, you're chasing it, or you're quoting it, or you're getting it right, making sure your numbers are right, tracking your data, making sure your team's right, making sure the first year apprentice has got what he needs, he's okay. Like it just goes and goes and goes, and it's really, I think you mentioned it, off the sort of data that you guys track, that you think 80% of...
I reckon it's 70 to 80%. Well, it is. It's 70 to 80% of the tasks it takes to run a successful business are off-site. And like I remember, so it's definitely a building podcast today. We haven't even had to pay for all these sound effects.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, like as I was starting to get my building business going, and I was like, we did a few years of, I had 40 plus carpenters, and we were doing a lot of contracting work, and a lot of that work we ended up getting in with this company they were growing as well. They were doing a lot of multi-res, and we did a heap of commercial work with them. And every job we did with them, they had multiple site officers on site. They had superintendents and project managers and all this stuff, and like I had great relationships with them, but man, I used to give them shit like all the time. I was like, you guys just sit in your friggin' office, like what are you actually doing there? Like come on. And I look back now and think, man, like no wonder they never had time to sort of come out and chat with us or sit with us for smoko, like because it takes a fucking lot of work to run a business or run a site. And I think like coming from that there and then getting to where I am now, like, and it probably plays a big part in what I do, and like definitely what Amelia's doing with Undercover Architect. I honestly feel that homeowners don't see that as well. Like they just see their beautiful new home or renovation getting built, and they have no understanding of how much work actually goes on behind the scenes. Like I know for us to get a job, I want to start doing a few socials on this because the last couple of jobs I've been really taking a lot of notes on what's involved. And like we got one job at the moment where I'm going to do some socials on to give people an indication. So it's this particular job, one of these jobs in particular, we've gone through our pack process, and mate, we're up to, as of last week, we're up to nearly 2,300 emails, and we haven't even signed a contract on that job yet. Like that's just, and that's over that. We probably we met that inquiry about 15 months ago.
Geez, man, I hope you can type faster than I can. That's a lot of emails.
No, so that's because we're all, and look, that wouldn't even be all of them. That's what's on my computer. We have this thing when we do our pack process that the whole team's copied in. So most of the stuff that Camille and Sharon are sending in the office, like everything, I'm copied into everything just so I can get my head around it.
Yeah,
and so like 2,300 emails. Like, and that's just emails. Like, that's not the people's time to put those emails together, or the information that's in those emails, or what those emails are about.
Yeah,
like
digesting it and responding. We're
like
the same. We did a first round. Admittedly, the documentation came to us when it was, sort of 3/4 complete. But our first round, we've tracked 60 across 2 different projects. So they're different. One's a new home, one's like a multi-unit dwelling. But both of them are between 65 and 70 hours to deliver the first round of costing, which is the bulk of the the quantities and things like that.
Yeah.
And if you
so that's 2 weeks' work.
To go back to the starting conversation about clients, like you could say this to them and they just look at you and go, yeah, but can I have it? Can you have it to me in a week or 2 weeks? And you're like, but it's 2 weeks work.
So how many people, like for your team, how many people in that time, like who's involved? Like yourself, administration?
Myself and administration, and I might bounce some things off supervisor just as a...
Yeah.
I mean, because it's the buildability thing, we work it together. So not as so much that, but mainly just myself and administration. Most of it is actually still me.
Yeah. So that's two or 3 people's time. And so that's first round.
That's first round.
Yeah, you've still got to do a couple of revisions to get it to contract, and then all the time getting the contract together. And then is that including all the phone calls, design meetings, and?
It probably doesn't include phone calls, but we've long put a circle around 100 to 120 hours to get to contract.
That's I reckon that's where it's
pretty tight. Yeah, like we pride ourselves, the same, the drill, but pride ourselves on getting it to like watertight. Unless they want to change their mind, like we've got you covered. But we'd rather conversation early, so we've got it nailed. Like we want to know more about you, get it, and conversations early are the best conversations is the narrative we use in the office. But because I've been saying 100 to 120 hours for so long, I'm like, we're actually measuring this now. Like I need to know this. Mate, we go through it and I'll keep a spreadsheet on this with a couple of different tabs open, like just sort of, an RFI tab, who's got to send a quote, who's got to, receive a quote from, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, it's got like 15 pages now.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We use Asana.
Customer savings, things like as in value management options. Because, no one's ever gone and no one's ever come with more budget than they need, like on a building project. So, but they come with that. So regardless, like you don't know, you got a rough idea where it's going to end up because that's sort of roughly a job, but no one can know perfectly. So that's why we do the process. And then when we do come with this information, they're almost overwhelmed. Yeah. Like, because they've just got so much to take in, which is good. But then you're like, it's almost like they're surprised that you've said it takes 60 or 70 hours to get to this. And like, but can you see where it goes? Like, they've got no chance. Oh, mate,
I'm really glad you said that. And I'm super pumped that you're tracking that sort of data. Like, we probably haven't tracked, or we haven't tracked the exact hours and things, but like I've thrown some numbers around for ages, and obviously it depends on the size of the job and things, but I really believe that for a builder to do their job properly up to the building contract and be able to provide a very detailed, thorough proposal and go into a fixed price contract confidently is 100 to 140 hours, and it's probably longer, and that's multiple staff. Like, that's just not you or me.
No.
And I think it's super important for especially builders, but all trades, to be understanding what they're putting in that preliminary part of the project, because most builders are doing it for free. Like, and then they wonder why they've got no time. Obviously, we're doing we push the pack process, and like you're charging the fee now to get paid for that service. But when you start to quantify that time and actually physically digest it, that holy shit, like that's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, that's time that's taken you off doing other tasks, keeping jobs running, keeping the business operating.
The thing we spoke about too was it's not an hour here or an hour there. Like when I'm estimating, I don't know about you, but what I've found is it's not like you're pinching an hour here, half an hour there, an hour there. Like it's almost like lock myself away in a dark room, turn my phone off, adopt the kids out for a couple of hours. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm the same. I've got to be focused on it.
It's 65. That's the first round. So 100 hours of actually really high value, hard to get, focused time to do that. And it's like I've done it before, before we charged a fee. And you have moments going like, I mean, I've clearly got no hair. There's a few contributors, but like you sit there and go, like, are these people even serious or are they not? And you're doing that. Whereas, I mean, if you're going through that process, you've got their buy-in and more like it's an important part of it, but more importantly, you've got their attention and they're actually listening to what you have to offer. Because, I mean, who would have thought that 25 years of being on a job site might actually be valuable towards their project? Do you know what I mean? Like, not putting on a pedestal, but it's the whole thing doesn't make sense, does it? We know that, but when you have that buy-in and you are sitting there and, you know, say you are working at 9 o'clock at night, or you've told everyone you're not available for the day or whatever it's going to be, you're sitting there and you're so engrossed in their project, and you're going, they could do this, you've got this option, you've got that. Like, I come up with all these ideas that could be good, and this isn't necessarily if we've got our hand, this is like, we've charged a fee for a while before the pack, but sometimes they come to us with their own documentation, and you still have the same situation where you're sort of going, right, how hard do we go at this? You just have to bring it up for conversation, but you've invested in doing it because you're like, I'm going to give you as much value as I can.
Yeah.
And it certainly outweighs the fee.
But once you get to this point, it really makes you think about, like, the industry's just done so many things to create its own problem. Like, so this is just my opinion on it, but like you have like these volume builders that are pushing that you can get this built for this amount of money. So people's perception of what things cost, especially in the custom home renovations, new homes, multi-res, townhomes, those types of things, are very skewed. And then you have like designers and architects that maybe haven't been taught or don't appreciate how much time's involved to do costings, ringing builders up and saying, hey, I'm going to flick at this drawing, can you give me a call back in an hour and tell me what it's going to cost? And then you get builders that are chasing their tail and screaming to get the next job that, have that phone call or get that set of drawings and say, that'll be 600 grand or whatever, without even putting any time or effort into it, which then, like, you can understand why homeowners get pissed. Because they've, from a 5-minute phone conversation from a builder going, we'll do that for 600 grand. They give the go-ahead to the architect to complete drawings. The architect adds all this detail to it. That house then comes in at $1 million. Like, the whole process is just it's so broken.
This could go on for days. It's remarkably disjointed. Like, we would talk to clients and people looking to go on a building journey, and I'm pretty candid about the fact that, like, this is going to be a journey and it's going to be an emotional one, but it can be an enjoyable one or it can be a horrific one. And this is why we do what we do. Yeah. There's even like we implement a lot of the things from Live Life Build, obviously a lot of the things that have flowed through from Dad and good things to do, and just experience in general. But we really harp on about communication, and that doesn't make us the best communicators in the world. So things can go. I believe that there might be a few tears no matter what. You know what I mean? You might get pressure. You might have to extend your lease in the rental while it's getting built. Whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do is be as prepared for it as possible, and you're going to get the staples right and sort of know and have your expectations in line with your builder and the level of trust. Like, it's easy to say trust your builder, but like, seriously, get to know them, go through the process, do what you got to do, and sign up knowing what to expect, like how it works. What you're going to, like, take some time. Like, everyone's in a hurry. I understand that, because when they decide,
everyone wants it yesterday.
We're going to build. House is getting knocked down. We want to be in 3 months or whatever. 6 months. And you're like, but I'm not even going to get a permit for 3 months. Like, and then the finance thing. There's just steps, a lot of small steps that need to be taken, and it's so disjointed. Like, I remember an architect ringing me going, have you had a look at those plans? I said, no. And he goes, check your inbox. And I looked at the inbox, and he's like, it needs to be under 650. And I'm like, mate, you're talking on the phone. I just opened the email. What's this 650 stuff? What are you talking about? And, I had a quick look at him, and, in my head, I already knew where it was going to go. As in, I'm like, no. He's like, what do you mean? We really want you to build it. I'm like, but you want me to build it for your price. It doesn't work that way. Like, we need, back to the 100 hours conversation. Like, there's different sports. The volume stuff, like the project home,
it really, like,
may as well be NRL. And custom building is like tennis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so...
or cricket.
Yeah, whatever. They're so far apart.
That'll upset a few people. But, like, to me, it's just there's some really easy fixes that could make it. And there's definitely some design architects that are doing it really, really well. Like, one of the most simple fixes that I can't believe that designers and architects don't do is, like, why are they not getting the data from completed builds? Like when and look, this does get tricky because a lot of the time the build, like one build might be built by a builder that is running a shit show and doesn't know his numbers, so they think that they've got this incredible project for 600 grand, and then they get another builder to price and it's 750, but this builder's actually knows his number, still in business. This other guy's gone bankrupt. Like there is so many pieces to the puzzle.
Of course there is, but like it's an education thing, which I don't need to tell you. But I mean, you think about it, building is expensive. That's what rolls off. That's the common thread.
Yeah.
Or everyone knows someone who's had a horrible building experience or whatever it's going to be. And there's also that side of it too, that clients can become a bit more educated, and everyone is in a hurry. Like, take it from us. We're on the receiving end. Like, you could have seen your architect in years gone by, discussed your budget with them. They've drawn it. You've got engineering, soil tests, civils drawn up, all this sort of stuff. And they get to the builder and then they go, what do you mean it's going to cost 1.5? We told you our budget was 1 million or 1.2. And you go, but who... Like, like you didn't come to me to ask me that, and we're the ones that build it. It's so disjointed, and it can be seriously just. It can be a pleasant. It's still going to be a journey. It is, isn't it? Like we built our own house. We moved out. We're in a really ice cold rental during COVID when we couldn't leave. It was horrible. Yeah. But we had the end in sight and we knew what we were up for, and it wasn't that, apart from the house being just a bit uncomfortable that period, it wasn't bad. We knew what we were doing. And we've had so many clients now who have... all of our clients who have done our preliminary process, we've had... we did some metrics on it recently, and like the building timelines and the percentage of any builder requested variations is so minute.
Yeah, it's
and you look at it at the end. Whereas if you go down the wrong path and you get to the end, because people don't build things twice to check. Yeah. But why do people sit there and go, builders are expensive,
or they whinge about variations?
And it's just like the information's available. It's just got to take that one step backwards, go and spend the time, do the right thing. But
the thing is, people can be very hesitant to spend a bit of money up front and pay a builder to get involved. But from our experience now, I think we're pushing 150, 160 even more jobs. All of the issues we had in our early days are solved by this pack process we do now. And I often go back and just think about some of the jobs that we went a bit pear-shaped, and like people whinging about the costs and things, but the cost would have always ended up what it ended up. It's if we had to put in the time in the beginning to figure out, because the variations were what they wanted. So if we had conversations earlier on, those costs still would have been in the contract. Yeah. So it's not like the job just for some reason ended up more expensive. It cost what it cost to get what they wanted. Yeah. It's just that they didn't know it at contract.
The questions weren't asked of them. They can't know everything. The block, let's not go there, but the block can't tell them exactly what they want that suits their house. Yeah. A smaller home might suit them more practically, but they've always wanted the seventh bedroom, whatever it's going to be. But
I really like what you just said. Like they didn't, the questions weren't asked. Like if you don't, that is such a powerful part of the pack process. Like you're in an environment where everybody's a team collaborating. You're at the design meetings. The questions are getting asked. Like we had a cracking meeting this morning for a new project we got coming up next year. It was it's with Aaron, Green Coast Designs. Aaron presented all the internal finishes, selections and things. So it's a couple of weeks off detailed documentation so we can do a proper detailed costings on the job. And mate, I could give you a dozen examples of some of the things the client brought up at this meeting that if we weren't in this process would be variations when we got to site. And it can be as simple as this. So one example was towards the end of the meeting, this particular house is quite a large house, and the guy's parents are going to be living in the house. So it's actually got a bit of a wing that's designed as a parents' retreat. And he just brought up at the end of the meeting that his father's got these 80s big Yamaha speakers with each speaker's got their own amplification system, and they're right in when they have people over, they love music.
It's party time.
And he said, and he brought this up. He's like, I'm just curious. My father's got these incredible speakers. Where do you think they'll go? And so that created a whole half-hour conversation. And the guy brought up, showed us some photographs and things like that. And so now the designer's got to change or work these speakers in because they're important to the family and they want to make sure they've got somewhere to be able to use them. If we weren't in this process, that would have come up when we're doing a walkthrough, like the frame might be up or whatever, and at some point it could be sheeted and these people could have brought up, oh, we've got these awesome speakers, like where are we going to put them? And at that point it would have been a variation.
Yeah.
And that's a simple example, but that is the problems that get solved when you build a collaborative team that works through everything before you get a contract.
And it's funny because we have this conversation, like a variation, the word variation doesn't have to be a dirty word because they're part of what we do. We understand them. I haven't met a builder who loves them.
They're garbage, mate.
Yeah. I haven't met a builder that loves them at all. And it's not because, like, they throw everything out. Like, it's a time thing. Builders are time poor. Yeah. Right? Typically, we're trying to resolve that. I think that's what this podcast today is. We're solving this problem today. But no, like they're time poor. So we have schedules for our projects. We're organised. We organise our weekly meets, this, that and the other. So those speakers, for example, it would have been seamless. Now it's a variation. It probably requires your involvement, the builder's involvement as well, personally, because you're at the design meetings. But on site, if it's a vary, it's like, oh, we're doing this. So what's happened? So are you going to push your trades? Like, what if it delays the program? You're not. It's not one phone call. You're pushing could be 4 or 5. The whole program could be 10 trades. Yep. And do you think they're sitting at home on the couch waiting just because Dwayne's come up with a variation, so we'll just take a couple of days off until he's ready for us? Like, it just doesn't work that way. So, and the cost, the actual true cost to doing that last minute,
you never
or late
get
in
it.
the piece, no one ever gets it. They think that it costs a lot for what you've charged to do it, and you never get what it actually costs in terms of the disruption to your program.
Mate, builders could work out their cost for a variation and triple it, and it still would not cover, like you said, the true cost of the rescheduling of everything, reorganising, the administration, the picking up extra materials or whatever. But like, just using that simple example of those speakers, like if I wasn't doing this process and that job started, so it could come up at slab stage. And we're on site with a client, and they bring it up, and there's enough time to talk to the designer and maybe get things moved around. Variation might be quite small, but if it come up at frame stage and you've already got walls up and you've got to move things, it's going to be even more. Yeah. If it gets to a point where the house is sheeted and then it comes up and then you've got to remove walls, like, it's even more expensive, or it gets to a point where the house is ready for fit off. Like, so there is so many things that play when it comes to variations and timings and all those types of things. And I just obviously to me the pack process is a no-brainer. But
like you're saying though, in a defence for the client, not that they don't know, because you just don't know. All they see is the cost, and they want the speakers that they've forgotten about because they hadn't been asked the question, and that's what it's for.
And that is like I said, the most for me now, knowing what I know and doing what we do, like the conversations that are had during those design meetings when you're there as a team, and like, so that client was bringing that up just as because he saw that after that meeting, the things we'd gone through, he must have obviously been thinking about it and thought, oh shit, there's nowhere for us to put those they must be big speakers. But there's quite often things that the client brings up that like myself or the designer or architect might pick up and just start to think about, and then during that meeting or even a following meeting, we'll say, hey, that such and such you discussed, do you want that in, or where's that going to go, or whatever. Like, it just gives you so much opportunity to work through things while it's still at paper, rather than having to stuff everyone around on site.
We call it like the pre-season, like a footy pre-season for your project. Like, you're going for looking to win a flag, you do a pre-season train, get to know all the players and come up with some structure, and then you hit the season, and you go all the way through the finals and end up standing on top of the boat. Yeah. Like, this whole, all of a sudden just come out of nowhere, I'm going to go and take on the world and build a project, shooting from the hip, it doesn't work. So it's an absolute no-brainer. And look, back to my conversation before, I just think in the not-too-distant future, I think it's going to be a much more collaborative and probably, well, not probably, most definitely improve everyone's experience from start to finish. It's still a journey. You can't shorten that. Like, you have to go through the steps to get it right. We're not building on a production line.
Well, I think the more, something I'm very well aware of now, like the faster a client wants to push the process, the more issues, variations and problem that job's going to have.
Absolutely.
Like, no-brainer. Because you just don't get time to resolve things. So obviously we're really passionate about that stage and the pricing and things. That's like, we built the quotes. You're now using quotes. Like, what do you think of it?
We're pretty recently with our take up on it. We've done 2 separate projects through it, and we're high-fiving in the office. So Jess, who works with me in the office, she's like what we used to have, the formatting, and like she's got to put up with my spelling and stuff when I get my fingers on it. So it just grammar everything.
Yeah.
And she's like a Hawkeye. She like sees everything. It's like the Matrix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mine's it's horrible. So I sort of just go, yeah, but it's got to be right, because I like we use ours sort of for the on-site guys. That's a bit, we call it we're not religious, but we call it our Bible, you know,
Yeah.
the project Bible.
Yeah.
So it's got to speak a couple of languages almost. You know, it's got to speak to the client, it's got to speak to our team,
Yeah.
and then deliver it that way. So I need to be involved with it, and I love that part of it. But it is that high focus time. The formatting and the structure that the software provides us, and just being able to drop scope into your quote.
To me,
it's
the
no-brainer. Yeah.
proposal or the quote for a tradie is like it's the most important document besides your contract. And like, look, quotees, like we've got big plans for it. There's a lot of add-ons we've got. We'd love to do in the future, but for me, it was just really about creating something that was really simple for traders and builders to be able to use. But and we sort of tried to work, or we have worked a lot of the way that it's set up is to try and help deal with a lot of contractual things. So like the way it sets out your allowances and those types of things. But it's like anything, you got to put in a little bit of time to set it up. But like, I'm not sure if you put it in there yet and built your template, but like, man, once you get a template and you get it all set up, like you can smash out a quote, like a very, very detailed quote quite quickly.
You'll love to hear this, mate. We did our first one, and like you said, there's a bit of getting to know the software and where you are and stuff. It's not a hard software to get to know, so it's easy enough. But our first one, it took a bit of time, but we were so used to what it used to take us through a Word document or something that we used to use. Anyway, we were doing another one, the next one that came along, and I said to Jess, how long do you think you need? And she's like, they usually take us about a week and a half or something, so maybe by the end of this week we'll have it done. I drafted out the first draft of it, which I think was probably 85% of it in 3 hours. So, and
that's good, mate.
But it was a learning curve for us as well, like because I mean Jess's role, she hasn't spent 20 years on the job site either, so I'm the one who's doing the estimate in my head and thinking about the products and how it's going to get built, etc. So and we took that for granted too. Like I'm like, can you just punch out? And I'm like, we can't do that. Like I have to be involved, and I've done, and I was like, wow, it's like 11:30 in the morning. Like,
nailed it, mate.
What am I going to do this afternoon?
That was the whole intention of it, mate. Like,
no, it wasn't. It was nowhere near complete, and it certainly needed a tidy up.
But do you find, so we obviously use it, but so I find I do what you just said. Like we generally jump in early when we get a set of plans and we smash out the bulk of it.
Yep.
And then by working through the bulk of it, it sort of gives me focus of maybe some trades I need to ring and check on things, or might create a list that Camille needs to send out to suppliers or whatever it may be. But are you using did you start with the standard template of categories and items, or have you gone through and created all your own?
We started adding in our own on top of those, and what we found was, so we've got a fair bit of system in the back of our business anyway, so I didn't want to confuse with our numbers and cost codes and all that sort of stuff as well. So we ended up wiping the standard bunches that were there, but replacing with very similar stuff. It's just how your business operates, which you would know. Like we would call certain things or manage certain products a slightly different way. And we sort of had a system as archaic as it was, and we've replaced it with quotes. So
but do you think it's important? Like I think it's really important to always be starting with a list.
Oh yeah.
Like so that you can work through every item and just, I don't know, for me it just jogs my memory when I'm looking through a plan, and like I'll work my way through a list, and if I don't need it, just delete it, get rid of it, whatever. And to me, like quite often, well, I would say every job, there's something on that list. I go, oh shit, actually I haven't seen that on the drawings. I better go and look for that.
Like a lot of the stuff, I mean, you would know. So we build like new homes and multi-unit developments. So there's the line items in a proposal. There's just always a lot of them. Do you know what I mean? We do a handful of sort of renos and bits and pieces, but generally that's what it is. So if you've got all that stuff just rolling around in your head all the time and trying to be on top, that's why I used to be bloody a mess doing these things. Like I've spoken to a couple of Live Life Build members, and like they just go like, proposals just take us so long, and like and
mate, that's what
old Lukey's like. I spoke to him at the live event, and he's just like, do you find that as well? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I'm not alone. And he goes, what's the solution? So I'm not sure yet, but that was months ago. But yeah, so look, it's a really good thing, and it's just easy to use, and the templating part of it and the formatting, it's a no-brainer.
Mate, my biggest thing is like everything. If it's not simple, like I know I won't use it. Most trades and builders won't, but I've sort of realised now, like we touched on before, like to do proposals properly, you've got to be in that zone. And I find it incredibly hard to get in that zone during the week, even when we have specific time blocked out to work on quotes.
Yep, it's happened to me too.
And so I'm very comfortable now. Like I prefer to do my quoting on weekends.
Yeah.
So that might mean that I knock off early or start late during the week, spend some other time with the kids or whatever. But if the kids are at sport or at one of the grandparents or whatever, I can get so much more done. Like I can get more done in 3 hours on a Saturday morning than I can in 5 days during the week.
Yeah.
Like no phone calls, no one annoying me, no just having other stuff to focus on. Just sit in the office, turn the computer on, open the plans, smash it out. Done.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. It's exactly the same thing with me. Now that I know I can do them in 3.5 hours too. Like, but no, it is. It's so locking time away. Even when you sit there and go like you know, if you're anything like me, you write your list down or you schedule your day. Like I do that digitally, but you just make a bit of a note. Yeah,
I still write it, mate.
Yeah, just a bit of and some sort of times next to it and whatever. And like you can block the whole day. And like I'll write, turn my phone off, and email everyone now. So I'll supervisor, everyone needs to know I'm out tomorrow, I'm supervising, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And the day can still go wayward because you let something creep in, like one little thing or whatever, and then it derails, or you just answer one email, or you know, you get a text from the bookkeeper or something like that, and you open your phone, you see everything, like you know what it's like.
Mate, just today, like seriously, just 15 minutes before you rocked up today, like my day's gone awesome this morning. I've smashed through my list. I've crossed everything out. I get a text message from a supervisor. They've hit rock. Like we're doing a site cut. They haven't even finished the bulk out yet. And they sent me a video of the rock breaker, the excavator sitting there with the rock breaker on. So like I've literally I tried calling the client because that's the first thing we do.
Yep.
And 10 minutes before you walked in, I've just shot an email to the client saying, hey, please see attached video. We've, as latent condition, we've hit rock. So, and then outline what will happen next. So, and like I had planned on chilling out for 10, 15 before you showed up, getting prepared for today, but it's building, and that's what happens.
Were you nervous to have me?
I was nervous to have you, mate. I've been waiting for this one for a long time. You're relaxing now. We're going to have to go for another hour.
It's funny what you're talking about, like that just hitting rock, and then it can be like I can't imagine being a young builder coming into their first job and something like that happens, and I can't imagine it, and they just go, they just cop it in the neck, or they roll over, or do whatever they do, and they
don't notify the client, they smash it out, don't get paid for variation.
I used to have days off school and go and we used to dig, so I should have got Dad along for this one.
I was nearly going to ask you to bring your old boy. Well, actually, he's with you.
Yeah.
After we spoke the other day, I was nearly going to ring you back and say, hey, is your old boy with you? Bring him with you. Bring him down.
Yeah, we could. So I'll tell him. I probably wouldn't tell him it's a video. We'll just say I was going for a chat or a beer or something and just spring it on him. But I just remember it. I remember they were digging backhoes then, and we would dig and pour footings in a day. And I was just cutting trench mess and I just loved it. You know what I mean? But I remember like him always having the client on notice in case we went over on concrete or we hit rock or whatever, and you just always make sure that he'd get the chance and walk them around and show them like this is so long ago. But what a start to sort of understand why. You know what I mean? Like not everyone gets that sort of stuff. And now that the world's a lot smaller through Instagram videos, YouTube, all that sort of stuff, and then just this networking with other builders. Like back in his day, like he had some builder mates. They'd usually do a project together, but they probably weren't sharing like what to do, what not to do, and stuff like that. Everyone used to keep their cards pretty close to their chest. Yeah,
really close. Hey mate, can we touch on your team a little bit? Because you mentioned before we were recording, like you're very lucky to have like your supervisor and the team that you've got, which allows you to do a lot of stuff now that your old boy couldn't do in his business. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's funny. So we're not big. I think there's 6 or 7 of us. Made up of sort of on-site guys, carpenters and apprentices. And we've got myself and Jess in the office. So Jess helps out with admin and some business development and stuff like that. And I mean, even herself, she's a story. She's done a PhD. She was, I'm going to get this wrong, Jess, sorry, an orthoptist, which they know a lot about eyes. And she got sick of that industry, just saying it was a shit show, basically.
Yeah.
And is
she a client?
Yeah.
I still find that an amazing story.
Yeah. So she did our preliminary process and jumped on, and it was funny. Like,
So you had a client that did your preliminary process and thought it was that great that she then come and work for you.
yeah, well, so Jess is
Long story short,
educated, and I'm like, yep, I was emailing back. Sorry, Jess, I'm in a real hurry. This, that, and the other. Yep, meeting this afternoon, something like that. You don't know anyone who wants a job, do you, or something like that. It was a throwaway comment in an email, and then she wrote an email back, and it was this long-winded thing that was like, well, actually, if now that you mention it, such and such, I'd be really interested if there was a position to apply for. Is there somewhere I can formally apply for it and stuff like this? I'm sitting there reading it, going, is this a piss take or what? She's got one up on me here, and. Anyway, we just explored that further, and then she's completely changed industries to come and work for us, which is good because I have long spoken about the lack of professionalism from top to bottom, like whether it's trades or officers or whatever, just people's experience can come up like several notches, and it's not hard because there's so much low-lying fruit, if you will, for just opportunity to do that. And so she's come on board, and she's steamrolled the office, and it's good.
It's been really I love sitting behind the scenes, Live Life Build now, and seeing all you guys just killing it. And I pick up all the little things, and it's been unreal seeing you do your Friday wins or even just the phone conversation we have every now and then, because you've really run, since you brought her in, you've really run with handing stuff over to her and putting systems and processes in place to allow her to do what she needs to do. I think it's fantastic because that's obviously freed your mind up to focus on other things.
It stems back to that, seeing Dad do everything, mum and dad, you know what I mean? And then I sit there and go, why can't builders control their time and take the kids to sport and do all that sort of stuff? Our family's really young, so I want to do that. Do you know what I mean? And Dad did that too. I played footy on a Sunday. It was probably the only time he took off to come and watch me play.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly the team does that. And Ryan, so our supervisor's been with me. So I met Ryan at trade school.
Yeah.
I did my apprenticeship at the same time. And it was funny because I said to Dad, when I was working in Dad's building business, I said, look, there's a guy, I think he's going to be good. He gets it. He gets it. And he said, I'll come and work for you as long as you still swing past for a beer as mates. It can't just be work. And if you fast forward 17 years to now, that's pretty funny because he's pretty hard to pin down for anything but work. He's like the guy creeping around the job site at 5:30 in the morning writing his list for the day, which is just remarkable. But
so he's been with you 17 years.
Yeah. So he said to Dad and myself, he said, I'll do anything you want, just don't give me a set of plans. Now he's running all our jobs. And I laugh, but he laughs as well. It's all pretty good. But yeah, he's good. So, and then we've got carpenters, they've been with us 2-3 years and all that sort of stuff.
But you need someone in your team like that, don't you? I think one of the first things I tell a lot of builders now when they ask me, how do I do what I do? And I say I can't do it on my own. You've got to have a team. You've got to understand your numbers. You've got to make sure you're covering your costs so that you can employ other people to give you, not just time back, but your life back.
Absolutely.
And you'll never have an efficient, successful business if you're running around chasing your tail all the time.
No. And it takes an army. That's what we muck around with saying, but it's true.
Yeah.
I could take on more and more work, and our process from the office and the administration through to the delivery through to just simple things. I remember when I introduced sending out agendas for the weekly site meeting and making sure that minutes were followed up. And I remember Ryan looking at me like, "Are you serious? Can't I just have the meeting?" And you know what I mean? And I see the whites of his eyes, and you ask him now, and he's like, he loves doing it. He locks himself away Friday afternoons, make sure he follows through with it all, and it just flows through. And because the structure's there, we can do so much more work. I
think that's the key word, structure. You got to have some structure behind things.
Yeah, it's funny though, the growth thing. You mentioned to me before, what sort of spawned that, but that's through everyone. The industry's been fairly stagnant for so long, and the attitude is that I've finished my apprenticeship. What's left to learn? Yeah. Speaking of tradies,
I got my license now. What's left to learn? Yeah,
let's just go earn money. Yeah, that's just all it is, and it's a road to nowhere. You see guys who just have that attitude.
I need a dropping bombs button. That's a bomb.
What did I do?
You just dropped a bomb.
Did I?
That was good.
Well, it is, but they don't.
That's a Bradley thing. Do you listen to Bradley, the Dropping Bomb podcast? No. It's a bloody cracker, mate.
No, but they don't and it's a generalisation, but Ryan's a perfect example. He didn't want plans put in his hand. The guy can't assume more responsibility if I threw it at him. He's just a sponge for it. But first, put a little bit of protest up, and I think we've pretty good mates. Like we tell us, he'll tell me to get stuff too, if like you know what I mean. But we seeing that now, and they can see the benefits of it, and like we've hired staff off the back of it. Like we, you know, if we're recruiting, we show them, you know, the apps we use, the process. This is how we do this. Then they're sitting there just looking, going, "What?" You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
When you employ new people, yeah,
we had one this year. Matt sort of said, I asked him what sticks out from where else you've worked. He just said, "It goes just communication. Like, it's you know what you're up for." So, and that's good, and the aim is. I mean, we're business owners. That's our choice. But to be able to go home and switch off, you know, or take the kids to sport or go on a holiday like I am now or whatever it's going to be is a remarkable thing. But you want, like, they may not always know. I try and let them know, but you actually want that for them as well. Like, guys, this is why we have a pre-start.
Yeah.
So that you can set up, get your day nailed, like, and then just storm it and then go home, know we're under control, and do it again the next day. And you know what I mean? Like, opportunities are there, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and that's the full circle back to what I touched on before. Like once you've got that structure, like if so many builders and tradies, but mainly builders, if they put a bit of time into themselves, understood their running costs of their business, started charging what they need to charge, have the money in the business to employ the back end staff or the administration staff, you can double or triple the volume of work you do with the same site team by having more structure and you not running around like an idiot trying to keep up with all the administration stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's a no-brainer.
It's like, yeah, I mean, you can read all the books and say be proactive instead of reactive, all that sort of stuff, but how? You know what I mean? There's ways to do it. And there's just simple key things. Like if we don't have, one of the biggest things for us is the site meetings.
Yeah.
I originally thought too, like every week, that's a lot. You're having those conversations and seeing them anyway. You may as well structure them, make them a time that fits nicely into your calendar for the duration of the project.
Yeah.
And theirs. And like, there's always stuff to go through.
Yeah.
But even if there's not, there is. Like, I don't think we've had one yet. There hasn't been anything to go through that's job related or project related. But you know, even on the ones that are largely nailed, and you know, maybe not much has changed since the week before, or you know, a few things have fallen in place, whatever. But it's a cup of coffee and a chin wag, or whatever it's got to be.
And you're building a relationship. Yeah.
And you know everything's on track, and
like you say, there's never a time there's nothing to talk about. Like if it is lean on, you're always talking about the schedule of the job and what's coming up next and what's being done. Like and to me that is just so valuable for the relationship that you build with a client. Like for them to see what's going on, to know what's going on. And I think it's that whole it's just that structure of everything falling into place. Like by doing that every week, like how easy does it make your handover?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
handover shouldn't go more than an hour.
Yeah.
Like, not, you know, because they're keen to get in, but, you know, I mean, it should be that easy.
Yeah.
They know you've communicated everything that needs to be done, is usually done by then anyway, but, and what the obligations are thereafter. You know, here's the keys to your home. Happy days.
So, mate, what's, for someone that I've been trying to get on here for a while and was a bit shy of getting out of their shell, it's been a very good conversation. What's next for you and PrimeBuilt, mate? Like, what's the plans for the future?
The plans for the future. We want to move. We just want to shift our product slightly into just up a notch on the luxury side of things. So we've done a bit of luxury home building, as well as it's been a bit of a spread. And I'm pretty happy to build anything. We've got a narrative we build for the client, if that makes sense. So I guess what we're talking about, if the client's on board and they value what we can bring to the table and we can offer them value in doing so, I'm happy to work with them. I think the products we've seen come on the market in the last even 3 years, there seem to be just so many available out there now and doing that sort of thing. What you were talking about, building everything better to a better standard. I'm not saying we don't build it, but the point is, like, I guess just injecting that enthusiasm around the opportunities that are currently on the table and having the opportunity to actually put them into place.
Being more aware of the, for me, it's being more aware of the products we're using and the products available. Yeah. Like, and where they come from and those types of things.
Well, even that, like, I mean, I said luxury homes or whatever, but luxury can be ease of living. You know, it can be, there's so many things, or just like less maintenance in the home that you build, less weekly
design,
cleaning work, all that sort of stuff.
More efficient.
But through, we would like to probably just get a couple of extra cogs in the wheel, I suppose, just to just to iron a couple of things out. But that's...
So you've found your sweet spot. Like business operates well, team's good size, you're kicking goals.
Yeah, a couple more in the team probably, and then just the projects sort of, like I said, we sort of do a bit of diversity. I wouldn't mind honing that, but I mean that's a good thing too sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you're aware of it. I think that's the important part. Like you're aware of it, and you know you're looking around. You're trying to hone in on things.
The network, mate, does massive things for us. I mean, you guys are out there doing the tiny things, and then I've got good mates with Hamish. He's out there pushing the passive.
Yeah.
Barrow and stuff. Like there's so much opportunity out there. We still I do like new homes, and I particularly like getting like when you ask a client how do you live, or how do you what it's going to look like, and you get all this what they think you want to hear, and they don't know, and we've sort of touched on that. But when you actually push down a little bit, it's really interesting. I actually like seeing, not changing people's minds, but seeing them sort of consider what you've got to say, and then sort of go, you're right, we've double thought this, we don't need to do this, and just alter it slightly, and you've just improved that home for them. And like a lot of people we build for, we term it that's their forever home. Like the kids are going to grow up there, the schools down the road that the kids are going to go to, and the high school's over there, and the sporting club's there, and they're not going to move. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, let's get it right. You know what I mean? And
I really I take my hat off to you, because that, to me, that is such an important part of our role as a builder that I think a lot of builders overlook. Like it's part of the pack process. I get so much out of being at those meetings, and like you said, being able to talk through scenarios and situations and products and that with clients. And like I would say now, it's like I'm not there to control anything. I'm there to add value. But for me, it's quite often a really incredible journey through the process, seeing what the client sees value in. And like you just touched on it, like sometimes what they end up with is not what they thought they wanted, but you can't get to that point without having all those conversations.
Yeah, that's right. Well, mate, it's 100%. Like people's idea of luxury is different.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Or it comes from something they've seen on social media, or something they've seen a friend's house got built or whatever, and they might think that they want it for the wrong... Like the reason they think they want it might not actually be suitable or the right reason, until you educate them more about the whatever. It could be the I don't know, where it's getting used on the house, or how it's getting used. Like there's so many things.
Absolutely. We actually did a project not that long ago for some people who retired. They're in their 70s, and we spoke about just their documentation had steps at thresholds on it. And I'm like, would you be interested in like leveling them out so it's just everything's seamless and transitions
age in place?
And he's kind of like, absolutely we would. And we just looked into that, and it meant having drain seals and windows and things like that, just to navigate the hard paved areas outside and stuff like that. And like no one's talking to them about that. Someone's putting lines on a page and giving them their 5 bedrooms and whatever else they think they want, which is, it's great. But
do you go back to the designer or architect and get them involved in all that sort of stuff?
This one was one of those sort of, we got involved sort of halfway down. So yes, certainly do. Look, there's lots of things. Look, and you don't always get it all either. Like you can't, you don't know someone. At the end of the day, we try and get to know them. We've got the period to do that. So they had a little wine cabinet, and I still kick myself that it's. We could have refrigerated or something. Like, I don't know much about wine, but you know what I mean? I've learnt that now. Do you know what I mean? So you don't always get it right. But that conversation, on the next one, like I write my notes, mate, and I've got them down there. Like, it's exhaustive, the checklist that I've got for things that I consider at certain stages. And if I hand it to someone else, like that to be like another language, but that's what we do, Like,
I think, mate, you are so full of knowledge. I think you've got a lot to offer the industry and your clients and your team. Like just the fact that you're taking the time to do that sort of thing is so valuable. Like, because I do that. Like, I know I'm not a wino. I know nothing about wine, but we probably did our first cellar 10, 12 years ago. Yeah. And just through the conversation with the clients about the wine gave me enough that each time we've done one now, I've gotten better and better at it. Like, and so we've actually got one only 2 weeks ago come up, and I wouldn't have known about. Like, it was a first presentation of some hand sketches the designer's done. Mm-hmm. And they want to display some wine, and they were the area where they're thinking about displaying it. Like, it may end up with some really valuable wine in it, but it won't last if they do what they're talking about. So I was able to have some input into that, which has now made them go away, and they're going to have some discussions about, well, how serious do we actually want to get with the wine? So if I wasn't asking questions, I wasn't involved in the early process, we'd go ahead and we'd be building that job, and it'd just be a glass door underneath a set of stairs, and they'd be throwing wine in it, and it'd be useless.
Well, yeah, it's incredible what you can, when you start to think and deep dive, and you can extract. Like we've found a resolve after the fact with this, and helped them out. But it's pretty lucky because I looked in the cellar and I think there's wine in there that's worth more than my car. But that's their thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's just like the speakers you mentioned before. That's their thing.
Yeah.
You never know what everyone's thing is. Like, yeah. You can just see, people don't always know what they want. And again, like you said, it's not my job to tell them, but certainly got, from the years of experience, the insight, the touch points that we come across in our industry when you are so heavily entrenched. Like, you can't be in our industry if you're not just in it. Like, you know what I mean? So all that stuff comes to the fore. That's what you get.
Making it personal is the best way to connect with clients, but isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like, if you're meeting a client, like this is probably the best recommendation I can give all builders to separate yourself from the builder next door. Like, you've got to make it personal. Like, find out, like you just touched on, like every single client will have something that they see value in, and if you can nail that, mate, you've got the job.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I've failed at this before and gone like all numbers heavy and data heavy in my head, and we need to do this and this and that and what's happening, and like all of a sudden it came flooding back to me, and then Dad sort of reiterated, he's like, mate, you're just got to make a connection with them.
Yeah.
Like, and that's it. Like, my dad's knowledge of certain areas of the world would probably have come through his relationship with a building client.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and he's become curious and then deep dived a bit further on that in his own right, and then off the back of obviously further conversations with them, probably on a job site, but not about their job. And it just goes from there.
Yeah.
And you can take so much away, like they can from us, from other people as well, obviously. But it is a big part of it. And finding those people and delivering the value that you're, like, in your field of expertise, which not all builders are good at celebrating themselves or promoting themselves, but that's what happens. It really is a case of that. It just finding that groove, and then
you love it, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And it's funny. There's parts of it you love that are like, if you asked me 10 years ago, it would be like, I'm happy to frame, or whatever. I love hanging off a roof. Like, it used to be my thing, and like you do, you just find yourself walking a top plate or something, just loving it, and you're out there dancing, and like my team now wouldn't even know that I dance, but that's what we did. Ryan, my supervisor, certainly seen it. So, and that's what you do. We just loved it, but like, it's different things you love now. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd still love to do that. I'm not sure that you're allowed to do it anymore, but you're allowed to dance, not top plate.
Not walk on top plates. Mate, we used to walk around top plates on 3-story buildings. Like, I wouldn't even. I would put money on I couldn't even do it now. I'd probably shit myself. When I was on the tools, we did it every day. Yeah,
I think that was like what was in my head when I signed up. I'm like, the quicker I walk on a top plate, the easier it's going to get.
Yeah.
So I started doing it when I was on work experience. And
then if it was too tricky or too hard, one of the boys would be holding a bit of 70 up, and you'd be holding onto that with one hand as you're trying to walk along.
Yeah, but you didn't want to admit it, but you didn't want to ask them for their help, so you just try and walk it half the time anyway, which was stupid. But no, so it's changed. So from top to bottom, though, you can't master what we do in a short period of time. It's the learnings along the way. It just builds and
but
builds.
You can master it a lot better by working together.
Absolutely.
I think that's like the community we have in Live Like Build is friggin' insane. Like the stuff that gets talked about there, but just builders in general. Like builders need to just talk.
Mate, the network part of it's huge.
Yeah.
Like I quite candidly, like, I don't see every video, and I try as much as I can to catch up, but there's so much in there. But, I make a point of, in the last month, just trying to call a few different guys and girls, from the crew, and just go, what's going on? And you just you sort of go, oh, I'm going to speak to Todd this week, I'll try and get a hold of him. And I'm like, oh, I've got 10 minutes in the car. This should be good. Like 50 minutes later, I'm sitting in my driveway and we're still solving the world's problems. You know what I mean? And I can hear his end. He's like, he doesn't want to get off the phone either. Like it's good. So you get a lot of, to understand that other people have similar challenges or have had is a big part of it. So, and same with the old man. I've got that privilege of having that in the background as well. But it's certainly a challenging environment, but equally very rewarding.
It's what you make of it. But mate, we're going to have to get you back for another one. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here, and I'm definitely, mate, let me know if you're going back to, what is it, the Isle of Man?
The Isle of Man or Goodwood.
Goodwood, mate.
Well, they're about a month apart, mate, so if you can get like an extended time off. But,
we'll see how we go. But mate, I would have liked to get back to the bikes and the cars and that a bit more, but we could talk all night, but we'll get you back for another one, I think. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate your time, and I think you've really given some awesome advice to everyone listening, so thanks very much.
Thanks very much for having me, mate. The pleasure's all mine.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelikebuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Dwayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.